Hello, welcome to Autistic Chess Openings. We're covering the Sicilian Alapin as white, line number 1. Let's review today's line. Sicilian Alapin on the board, and Nc6 is the most common response, so we're going to be handling that. Not the best move, but not a bad move. We go d4, they take, we take. We have two unchallenged pawns, so they challenge it with d5. We take, they take. At this point, we want to go knight c3, but don't do that yet, or they'll just take our pawn with their queen. So we go knight f3 first to defend it. They pin our knight, we don't care, we go knight c3 anyway. Now, the most common and only good response here is bishop takes. We then take their queen, they take ours, we check them, they move their king to d7 usually, not d8 usually, 80% of the time. Then we take their rook. At this point, their only good move is bishop h5, which they usually find 41% of the time, which means 59% of the time they're messing that up. Bishop to h5. Now we push our central pawn attacking their knight. They jump in the middle, we challenge that knight and say, please check us and take our rook. They oblige, they check us, and we go to d2, and 83% of the time they take our rook. That is a blunder. They need to take our bishop here. They only do that 17% of the time. They take the rook, we check them with our bishop, and we could get their knight back, but we're not interested in that right away. We have more pressing issues, so we check them. And the most common move here is a second blunder, going to c8. They need to go up to d6, heading toward the middle of the board. Counterintuitive. We check them again. And now for a third time, they blunder again by going into the corner to take our knight. We now win the game. We check them here with the bishop. Now they see their danger too late. They try to block, we take. They try to block, we take. They're forced into the corner. We checkmate them. And that's the end of the line. Okay, let's get into the details. So, there's the Alapin on the board. Let's look at knight c6. 31% of the time amongst all players at higher levels of play. Take it up to 2,000 and above. Knight c6 is no longer dominant. d5 is, and then knight c6. 23%, 19%. Take that all the way up to 2,500 and above, and now you'll see the most common responses. Knight f6 is the preferred response by the masters and above. d5 is the second most, and knight c6 is down in last place of the 5 common moves, that the 5 common responses to this variation. However, it is important to know how to handle knight c6, and it is not a particularly bad move. It just allows black less options, and it reveals their hand a little earlier than they would like. So as long as they followed up the right moves, it's not a bad move. We're going to hit them with d4. Now, at this point, 84% of the time, players take this pawn at this point. So they take, and then we're going to take. Now we've got two unchecked center pawns, and they need to do something about that. And there's a lot of bad moves here they could do. All right, let's pause here and switch to my mapper. For those of you who are new, this is my chess mapper. It maps pre-calculated Stockfish 18 engine scores to a depth of 200 million nodes per position, which is a pretty good sample, and we can then map lines. Most people use Stockfish to evaluate positions. I use this custom written program that I wrote to map lines so that we can figure out the most optimal lines to go through. We're looking for top engine strength. We are looking for nastiness, trickiness. We're looking for minimizing our branching, and we're looking for obscurity until they're out of book. So that the objective of the opening is to get is that when by the time you're out of book, no, it's to get them out of book, with us still having a lot of book left. And that is the dominant factor as to whether you come out of the opening with an advantage if your book is a lot bigger than theirs. So that's our objective, and so that's why that's the dominant factor and not the initial engine strength of a particular opening. That's why we're playing the Alapin variation. It's a lot more obscure. Happens like 5% of the time or less. So and like 7% of the top levels of play. So it's a very obscure opening. We're going to use that to our advantage. So we calculate these scores, and then we recalculate them at every step. So they go knight c6 here. We can see that we have a 16-point lead if they play this move. And that changes because now we're reevaluating it to the same depth of 200 million nodes each time. These are all the legal moves here. So we go d4. Here's all their legal moves. And they take. That is their top engine response. We take, that's our top engine response. And here we are in this position with the two unchallenged pawns. All right, so we can see what's common on the left. We can see what's powerful on the right. Let's start mapping lines. I've already mapped ahead and figured out which ones are the most dominant lines to make it as anti-human as possible. Just a minute. Thanks for your patience. Sorry, I still have that cold. And I didn't want to stop making videos, though. So d5 is the most common response. 39% of the time they play that. And if we come over here on the side, we see that's the top engine move. If they don't play d5 here, we get a comfortable lead. We already have a comfortable lead. It'll get bigger if they don't do d5. So they go d5. And now After they do d5, we've got two moves here. Knight c3, e takes d5. I'm choosing e takes d5 as the better move. So we take there, and now they have to take back. So that's their only good move. They take back. All right. So you can see our moves here on the side. Knight e2 and knight f3 are our only two good moves that keep our advantage. Knight f3 is the dominant one. We go knight f3. And now their most common move, 51% of the time, is to pin that knight. That move is more common than all the other moves put together, so we should prepare for that one first. That way we get the most amount of coverage for the least amount of effort. So they go bishop g4. And now knight c3 or bishop e2. If you map ahead and go down the different lines and find which ones have the highest error rate, and that's the thing. We are going for top engine moves, but when we have multiple top engine moves, we are now looking for the other options. We're looking for trickiness. We're looking for reducing how much we have to learn, how many branches we have, and for getting them out of their opening book. The likelihood of them still being in their opening book at this point is still possible because they're not playing bad moves yet, and we don't know whether they're out of book until they play their first blunder or mistake that gives us a substantial lead. That's probably not part of their book. So knight c3 or bishop e2, when you examine both of those and go down the line and map them, you'll see knight c3 is definitely superior. So we go knight c3. Now, if you take a look over here, they have to take our knight with their bishop. If they do anything else, they are in a losing game, and we will have to learn how to punish those in the future. So we'll cover those lines later. Right now, we're going to cover the most common response, which is their best response, to take our knight. All right, now, at this point in time, we are actually going to sacrifice a tiny bit of engine score. They take our knight. Now, our top engine move is to take back with the g-pawn. However, it's the top engine move at this moment in time. If we go looking further down, so here it is right now, we take it with if we do try g takes f3 plus 17, we go down that. Now it's plus 15 when they take there. Then we take, and then they take, and then we take, and then we go knight b5. You can see where this reaches its first branching point, where we have a slight lead, and it's more like 12 points. So it's slowly dwindling from what it was down to a little bit, to about half that. So whereas if we take their queen and we go down that line more, it's very, very close as well. So these two are actually neck and neck. It's this point in time right here. They take our knight with their bishop. We're looking at taking back with the g-pawn or taking their queen in the middle. And if you go down both those lines, you'll see that they are both actually neck and neck for the top engine move. So what matters is no longer the engine strength of the move, because we know they're both top engine moves. What matters now is the other factors, the most anti-human lines. We want when it's their turn, we want their good moves to look bad and their bad moves to look good, and that's what I mean when I say trickiness, the nastiness of the anti-humanness of the line. Make it as difficult for them as possible. And how do we figure that out? We can see what's common on the left. So if it's common for them to do something bad that gives a real bad score, then we know it's very counterintuitive to play this position as black. And it turns out that taking their queen is by far the better way to go. So we're going to take their queen when they take our knight, and now they have to take our queen. So they take our queen because we have theirs, and now we do this check here. That is the only path forward. If you look at our other scores here, we go from a positive 7, where we're 7 points ahead, 7/100ths of a pawn, to negative 151. That means black's dominating. So we're going to go knight c7 check. We cannot take their bishop back. We don't have time for that. So we check them. 80% of the time they move their king to d7, and only 20% of the time they go to d8. So we're going to cover the king to d7 move today. So we take the rook. We're going to take the rook no matter where they put their king, but d7 is slightly different than d8, and that could come into play later on, and it actually does. The queens are off the board, their king ends up in the middle, we have some checks. The checks are different if their king is on d8 versus d7. So we're going to be covering d7, but again, that's 80% of the time, so that's going to be very common. So we took their rook, and now if we catch the mapper up to that point in time, here it is right here, king d7, that is their better move. King d8 puts us 61 points ahead instead to 14. So far, when they play king d7, they are playing this optimally, just like we are. So we have not detected them making a blunder yet, so we don't know whether they're out of book yet or not. We need to get them out of book and get us to where we still have a lot of book after that in order for us to be having a high likelihood of winning this game. So we take that rook right here, knight takes a8, that's our only good move, of course. So we take that. And now we're going to see another branching point that they could blunder and show us that they're out of book, and in a way that puts us way ahead. So bishop h5 happens 41% of the time. That means that 59% of the time it does not. If it does not happen, your opponent's out of book, because bishop h5 is the only good move here. Everything else is a blunder where they get way behind. So they need to go to h5. So if they go h5, we don't know whether they're out of book yet or not. As soon as they go to h5. All right, now we're going to play d5, attacking that knight. All right, so as soon as we took that rook in the corner, they retreat their bishop, strike out at their knight at that point. d5. Attack that knight. Now, as soon as we do that, they need to go knight d4. If they go knight b4, attacking that c7 square with their knight on b4 instead of d4, take a look at the difference in engine strength between those two moves. Knight d4, we're 11 points ahead, they're playing it right. Knight b4, we are 292 points ahead, they're playing it wrong. At that point, we've got a dominant lead. So if they play knight b4, they don't know they're opening. If they play knight d4, perhaps they do, or maybe they're just getting lucky. So they go knight d4 is the most common move, 61% of the time. Knight b4 is second, 31% of the time. Those are the only two common moves in this position, and we will cover the knight b4 one another time. So they go to knight d4. All right, at this point, we go bishop e3, attacking that knight. We are egging them on to make the blunder. Please take our rook, we're saying. 90% of the time, they go knight c2 check, and that is their only good move in this position. Everything else, as you look at the scores here on the right, puts us 400 points or more in the lead if they do not check us at c2 at this point. They have to do this move. If they play anything else, they're in deep trouble. So they go knight c2, check. Okay, at this point, we only have one legal move, king d2. So we're going to play it because we have to. Now, they need to take our bishop here to keep the score equal. If they take your bishop, they might be going down this line and know what they're doing. If they take our rook, they do not. And that happens 83% of the time, taking our rook. And because it's the most common move, we're going to be mapping this so that we can learn to prepare for it and how to punish it. Excuse me. Sorry about this. Thanks for your patience. All right, they take our rook. Okay, we now know they're out of book. We're going to learn our book even further from here. We're way ahead, but only if we know how to cash it in. Here's how we cash it in. Bishop b5 check. All right, so right here they took our rook. Now take a look at these moves. We got bishop takes a7 is a possibility, and we got bishop to b5 check is a possibility. Those are our two top engine moves, and if you look at them, they're 290 and 274, and everything else is weak. 20, 14. 274, 290. We need to do one of these two, and if you map down them like I've done, you'll see that the most optimal anti-human line, that they're both neck and neck for top engine moves. So now we look at our next criteria, trickiness. And then after trickiness, minimizing our branching, and then getting them out of book. We don't need to worry about getting them out of book anymore. We don't have to play obscure things. They're out of book. So we have three factors now. Strength, trickiness, and minimizing our branching. And if you look at those three qualities and map both these lines and then come back, you'll find bishop b5 is the best one. Bishop b5 check. So we go bishop b5 check. We can now recapture their knight if we want to, but we don't want to waste time. We can do that anytime we want. Their knight cannot escape. There's no move they can do to make sure that it escapes before our immediate threats. So we check them with our bishop here. Now they have three moves for their king. They can go to c8, they can go to d8, or they can come forward to d6. They need to come forward. If you take a look at what's common, we'll see what's intuitive for people. King to c8 is intuitive and the most common, 47%, they go to c8. If you take a look at the scores for c8, that is the worst of the three. Okay, our lead is 283 points. If they go king to c8, it's 557. We are now gaining another 200 points if they go king c8. If they go king d8, stepping straight back, we gain 100 points. They need to go d6 coming forward. But that is not common. D6 is the second, well, it's common, but it's not the most common. It's the second most common. And then finally, D8 is the third most common. And so we're going to be covering King C8 because it happens 47% of the time. That's almost half the time, and it's a blunder. So they've now done 2 blunders in a row. They took our rook, and then when we checked them with the bishop, they went to C8, probably honing in on that knight, thinking they need to recover it. They're trying to get our knight and get their knight out. They're worried about material, and the problem is they need to be worried about checkmate. Rook to C1. They think we're going to take their knight. We're not. We're going to check them. Their knight cannot get away anytime soon. So, after we've checked them, we now have their third blunder. Okay, let's see here. Rook C1. We can see that's our dominant move here. Rook C1 check is better than taking the knight. We can see it right there. Rook takes A1. There's taking their knight. See, we throw our whole advantage away if we recoup that knight right now. Right now, we need to go Rook C1. So we go Rook C1 check. All right. And then finally, at this point, they need to see that if they step to B8, they're going to lose the game with our check on the dark squares. They're so used to being able to block that with these pawn thrusts, but with our advanced pawn here, they can't block it. We can just capture en passant or just take the pawn. So they need to come out to King to D8, and we'll learn how to handle that one another time. But King to B8 is 54% of the time and the most common move. And now they're going to lose the game because we check them on the dark squares. And now, if they step into the corner taking our knight, we checkmate them, and all they can do is delay it. They block, we take, they block, we take, they go to the corner because they have no other move, and we checkmate them, and that's the end of the line. And until next time, thank you.